Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the Deported Veterans Border and Immigration Issues Workshop. And this is going to be a plenary workshop where we'll be here until 10. And in the course of our time, we're going to hear from folks who've been involved in the activities that we're working on for the last couple of 3 years, and in some cases back as far as five and 7 years. And we're going to just kind of like educate you to what work's been being done, and our mission is to strike an interest in you, support this effort in whatever way you can back in your chapter areas and in our national work as we grow, and we are growing. This operation has expanded considerably in the last, especially in the last year and a half, and much of that was support from Veterans for Peace. It's in fact a Vietnam Veterans Against the War Legacy Trust project. It's a 501c3 fiscal sponsorship, and but by the same token, the group is right next door to San Diego VFP, and it seems like it's just the perfect launch pad for being down there and dealing with these deported veterans that are getting dropped off on the border. So we've, in fact, in the course of our building our communications, have now developed a chapter there in Tijuana, which I'm proud to say we were able to charter this Friday at our board meeting, or this last Wednesday at our board meeting. Tijuana chapter, their temporary number 973, is now an official chapter. We'll get a chapter designation. This workshop is now how we're going to integrate our work together in the future years because of these issues. And so what I'd like for everybody to do, as you might know, we're going to be going to Mexico here on Sunday. We're going to leave for Mexico. We'd like everybody to rally at the border around 3 in the afternoon so that we could shuttle everybody in time for a grand cookout that we're having there in the community in Tijuana. And then we have hotel accommodations at the Hotel Salazar for a reasonable rate, and it's at least, Motel 6 quality. It ain't 4-star, but it's down there with the people, and they love us when we come and visit. Often we stay right there at the Deported Veteran Support House when we go down and visit. And anybody who wishes to bunk in at the support house, we got 10 bunks available for folks that can stay there for a small donation if you don't have money for the hotel. We've had it online. We've had 56 people sign up online so far, or maybe more. We don't really know how many's coming until Saturday because we need to get everybody registered. We have to keep a tight rein when we're across the border because we don't want to lose anybody in Tijuana. And, it's a bad place to get lost.
No, it's not.
And we won't do that.
Just kidding.
And we'll be there. Well, sorry about that. But we want to keep everybody together. We don't want anybody getting lost out there. And we feel responsible for folks who go. Yes?
Do you need your passport to come back?
You need a passport to make this trip. Sometimes they let you through. Jan and I have done this. Sometimes they let you through with a veteran's ID that will get you back through if you got a VA ID.
Okay.
But I can't promise that. Is what I'm saying. So I'd like everybody to fill out one of these cards, and if you're interested in going to Mexico, you need to let us know on here. But otherwise, there's a couple of options for levels of activity with us in the future. We want you, if you're interested in participating, we want you in our network. And what we'll do is we'll develop a closed listserv off of this, and move from there as a group, so that everybody has input into this thing as we go forward in the future. So I'm going to pass these around, and if everybody would please fill one of these out with your interest level on it. When you get ready and say, I want to register for this thing and go, then you need to check the $25 box down there, and we'll take $25 down at the desk downstairs, down at our table. We have a table in the room down there. We'll actually take that there. We won't do the money transaction up here. But indicate that on this box here and everything so we can know our body count, if you will, when we go down. Okay, so that's about going down there, and
And what was the 25 for?
25 is 25 4. It's for shuttles and
To and from the
we're
border.
going to be having the cookout, and then we're going to be having breakfast, and now we're going to have some lunch that's going to roll up for a lunch break at the workshop on Monday. So that $25 covers all of our operational fees, because we're going out of pocket on this thing at this point. So that's what that's for. Okay. So here you go. If you pass it right on around.
And in response to your question, if you don't mind, a veteran's military ID, if you're still active duty or reserve, pardon me, or your VA card and a driver's license. We would like to have 2 photographs is what we want.
What if
They may delay you, but you'll get through.
They have to let you in because you're U.S. citizens.
Yeah.
You just have to go through extra questioning.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why we're here. That's where we're going. Yes.
Willie, excuse me a minute. Rallying on this side of the border or that side of the
We're
border?
going to rally. Oh, okay. When we get to the border, we're going to have some. You got to go across the bridge. If you drive across, the addresses you can put on your navigator or whatever is on the page on Facebook, or check with me and I'll get that for you. But otherwise, when you walk, if you take the train down to the border and you walk across the border, we'll have someone there with a Deported Veterans Sport House sign down there, and they'll rally you and gather you, and then we'll wait there, and the shuttle will come and take you to the Deport House. So as soon as you walk across the bridge, start looking for the Deported Veterans sign and people in these Veteranos La Paz t-shirts, and they'll gather you and then go to the courthouse. And they'll be there on the border until we feel everybody's across that we have on our rosters. And so that's that. That's going to Mexico. For our purposes here today, we want to talk about the history of this movement. And we have a great panel to work with us up
Hey, I
here.
just want to add one more thing.
What, dear?
I've known this guy forever. But when you come across the border, you're actually going to walk down a set of stairs that will put you on a sidewalk with a lot of people that are lined up trying to come back across the border. There'll be somebody there waiting with that sign to take you across the bridge where the shuttle van will be. So there'll be people running people back and forth, so you won't get lost. There'll be somebody there with a big sign like at an airport.
Yeah. I was just down there last night to make sure our sign volunteers were going to be posted out there so that you could find them. Anyway, we're going to go now for our history, and I want to introduce our panel. And the fellow down here on the end is Jan Ruman. Jan Ruman is a member of Veterans for Peace, a member of the Vietnam Veterans Against the War Legacy Trust, and has been working on this issue for
6 years.
6 years now. Huh?
Cards.
We ran out of cards already?
Yeah.
I'll bring some more up and I'll get some more.
This
up
is
for you.
fair. Who wants it?
Can you go down and get some cards, Wayne? Thank you. All right. So Jan has been working on this, and we sort of like got introduced to it together through another associate, and so here we are these years later, and we've made some inroads, and I want you to hear some of those inroads and what the work has been from Jan, and then sitting next to him is Jason Cardenas, who's Vice President of San Diego chapter and a board member of Veterans for Peace, and who works in border and immigration issues, and is sitting on our panel and is a member of both of these folks are members of our border task force and immigration issues committee task force or whatever.
Another Cardenas.
Mark Cardenas is sitting right here. This is Mark Cardenas. Mark Cardenas is a retired Navy veteran and becoming a member of Veterans for Peace, I'm hoping. She works actively with the Deported Veterans Support House down in Tijuana and provides the logistical support and moral support and works actively with the folks down there and has a unique perspective on what's happening in the activist community in Tijuana. And so she's been invited to sit on our panel and is a member of our border task force group for Veterans for Peace. So that's our panel. And I'm going to give each of them some time now to talk about their experience and their issue and everything, and to introduce you into this world that we've been working in. And once again, welcome. Thank you for turning out for this workshop. I think this is really an important issue for us as Veterans for Peace, as we build international chapters. I think it's an important move for us as we try to reach out to the Latino community in terms of membership, as we've been trying to do for this PAWPAW program, LINs and things, is to involve ourselves at the community level and work on community issues and make the connections to war. The theme of our convention is peace in the Pacific, reconciliation and peace in the Pacific, and this is all about reconciliation. We're trying to reconcile American people who have been taken out of this country and dropped off in Mexico, and have no wherewithal to deal with anything. And we're trying to provide a soft landing for those folks, and then start developing self-empowerment programs. So without further ado, I'd like to have Jan Ruman take about 10 minutes here and talk to you.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming to the plenary session here on the deportation of U.S. military veterans. I like to call it the less than honorable policy of the federal government of deporting military veterans. Those who risk their lives for this nation, those who serve this nation, many who shed blood, have been deported since 1994. The number is estimated to be approximately, this conservative estimate, 100,000 veterans. 100,000 veterans since 1994. That's 21 years ago, isn't it? 94, 2004, yeah. So, and it continues today unabated. There was 3 reasons why veterans got caught up in deportations. One, they were foreign nationals who came here legally, 99.9% of them, although in the case of an Iraq vet who's on the other side of the border, he was not documented, but joined the military, and on Thursday, the recruiter said, "You don't have any documentation?" He said, "No," and they said, "Well, come back on Monday." And by Monday, they had documentation for this kid to join the Marine Corps. So he joined, and then when it came time to re-enlist, the war was winding down, he wanted to re-enlist again. And they told him to produce documentation, and when he couldn't, he was discharged for fraudulent enlistment and deported across the border by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So thank you for your service. We owe these veterans a debt of gratitude. Our politicians tell us that we can never repay. They're lying. You guys know it, and we've known it for a long, long time. Veterans are like rubbish. You use them once and you throw them away. That's exactly how this government treats these guys. They've been drafted in our military since the Civil War. In World War I, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. They don't draft anymore, but they're still required as legal permanent residents here who came here as children with their families with green cards to register for the draft when they reach the majority age of 18. If they don't register, they're deported. If they are called to serve, if there was a draft again and they don't come, they're deported. Now it turns out since 1994, in a law that the Republican House and Senate put together under the contract, it's called the Contract on America, they call it the Contract for America. Bill Clinton signed immigration that did 3 things that had never been done before that caught veterans up in the deportation. One was like the 3 strikes you're out bullshit. Everything's mean-spirited. There's no discretion for a judge to take into effect the whole person of that life and say, he may be a screw-up, but he just did his jail time. He's an honorably discharged veteran. He may or may not have served in combat. He's got a family here. He's got children. He's got a job. He's got a house. You have guys that own houses up here still that are deported on the other side of the border. We won't deport him. That discretion for that judge has been taken away. And so that's a mean-spirited way to do things. The second thing they did was they made offenses that were in the past considered too minor to be deportable. A bar fight. How many vets do we know that come back from overseas and get a bar fight or 2? Or brandish a weapon. It happens. I know many who have done it. Or get on drugs or alcohol and get a DUI. Or have a domestic violence dispute. There's some vets up in Colorado, the Valenzuela brothers. You can Google them. It's called the Brothers Valenzuela. One is an Army vet from the Vietnam War, and his younger brother joined the Marine Corps a few years after he returned and served in Vietnam as well. Valente is the older vet. He was airborne, I believe, or Special Forces. I can't remember exactly, but nonetheless, He received a Purple Heart and Bronze Star, and he was disabled by the VA, physically and otherwise. And he got a letter about a week before his brother got a letter to appear in deportation court. They showed up in uniform, so they've been fighting this case ever since they were asked to come into court. And the judge at that time said, I don't know how to handle this. I mean, here are these guys with all these medals and ribbons standing in the uniforms they wore as young servicemen, they still fit them, facing deportation. To me, it's just wrong, period. It's the only thing that's going to correct the situation, though, is a change in the U.S. Code, which is 8 U.S.C. 1101 Alpha 22, which defines what a national is of the United States and who's deserving of our protection. A national is, there's only two categories at present. There needs to be a third. But a citizen of the United States, so somebody who naturalized or was born here, or a person who, though not a citizen of the United States, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. I don't know anybody who owes more of a permanent allegiance to the United States than a guy who took the oath, put on the uniform, and was willing to go off to war. Maybe it was peacetime, maybe it wasn't. But we all know that war turns on a dime. You can be in a peacetime military today, and tomorrow we're at war. The change that needs to take place is that there needs to be the following. A third category, C, a person who by conscription or enlistment entered any branch of the United States Armed Forces. And this shall be retroactive to service persons previously removed from the United States. That's a small change in the law. It's 2 sentences to add to an existing section of the code that has A and B categories. So that any time a guy does this, he doesn't automatically become a citizen, but he does automatically become a U.S. national. Somebody who we owe our protection to because they went and protected our nation. When they go overseas, it's interesting to note that they become, under the status of forces agreements, U.S. nationals. But when they leave the military, and courts have said you can't be stripped of U.S. national status, except through a court of law. So they are being stripped of their U.S. national status upon returning to the United States and discharging from the military, even though they were considered U.S. nationals at the time they deployed overseas under the status of forces agreement, which we were unsuccessful to negotiate with Iraq. These are veterans from Korea, and I would assume that there's probably been some Vietnam, some World War II vets that have been deported as well, but they're passing rapidly and we're unaware of any. But Korea, Vietnam, Grenada, Gulf War I, the current wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and all wars in between, the little ones, the border skirmishes we had in Korea while Vietnam was going on. All those guys can be deported. And it's interesting to note that they have actually served in our military, foreign nationals have. Since the inception of this nation and its Declaration of Independence, they have fought alongside of us in every battle that we've ever participated in, every battlefield. They continue to do that today, even though they're not being drafted, they volunteer. They do it. The reason I've heard from these guys over and over again is that this is their nation, and they feel like they're Americans, and they want to give something back. I personally know of a Dutch guy who did that for Vietnam, who came over here as an immigrant, didn't have to join the military, but he did during Vietnam. A good friend of mine who's passed away since. But once they're deported across the border, and I don't mean just to Mexico, because they're deported all over the world. They're deported to Jamaica, they're deported to Italy, they're deported to Greece, they're deported back to Vietnam. In the case of a young Vietnamese who came here at 3 months of age as one of the boat people, he's been deported. They've deported people back to Lebanon, which is probably not a great place to throw a U.S. military person back into Lebanon. They've been deported to many South American countries, and they've been deported to Germany and many places. And strangely and oddly enough, I didn't think about it, but there's a ton of them in Canada who came across as and got the visa to come across, and then joined our military during this last wars, who have been deported. We do have somebody up there who's trying to organize those folks, and we did get some phone numbers and addresses and names. Because Hector Barajas, who runs the Advantage Veteran Support House on the other side of the border, does a damn good job of trying to find out who's deported, where they're at, and he keeps track of them. One of the sad things that happens to veterans deported across the border is often they're beat up because they refuse to get out of the van, refuse to go across the border. In the case of Fernando Cervantes, who was a veteran who was deported several years back, he was told in his ICE facility they wanted him to voluntarily sign himself out of the country. He'd been fighting his case for about 3 years. And they came into him in force and they said, we can do this the easy way or we can do this the hard way. And Fernando, who was wise enough, said, I'm not going to get the shit beat out of me and still get deported. So he signed himself out. He was put across the border into El Paso. He had a brother that lived there. He stayed with his brother until his brother passed, and then he went to Tijuana and down to Rosarito Beach to the support house down there that the vets were running at that point in time. He ended up getting a post-conviction relief, which is really the only legal method to bring them back to a court of law, and it would be a case-by-case, and you can see how expensive bringing back 100,000 vets might be if you could locate them all. The legal bills would probably mount up into the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. Or the pro bono would mount up into hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hours. But he got back because he got post-conviction relief, and post-conviction relief was basically a judge and a prosecutor say they didn't get proper representation in criminal court because they didn't have an immigration attorney representing them to tell them what they were doing by pleading guilty to something. The law has a catch-22 in it. You can plead guilty to something that's got a 1-year sentence, and that's the deportable offense, or plead guilty to the 3-year sentence, and that's the one that's not deportable. And so pretty fun, huh? So the attorney for them in the legal, in the criminal matter said, obviously, take the best deal. But that best deal is the one that will get them facing deportation. When they do face deportation, they no longer have the ability to bail out. That's the third thing that the law change did. It took and made judges with no discretion. It made deportable offenses that in the past were too minor now deportable. And it took away the right for them to go out on bond. It's also, unbeknownst to me at the time, that immigration court is not like criminal court where you get a public defender. You're on your own. If you can afford it, wonderful. If you can't, too bad. So many of them, because they come from immigrant communities, don't have a lot of resources, and neither do their families. So when they're locked up in jail, they end up being transferred to facilities that are 2, 3, 4 hours from their residence. There was 11 of them out in El Centro, California, that were from the Los Angeles and Orange County area. And their relatives had to drive 4 hours down, 4 hours back, pay for the gas, the wear and tear on the vehicle, and lose a whole day's worth of wages. And if the place was shut down, they went away with not a visit. Phone calls out in those places out in bumfuck Egypt, pardon my French, are $35 and $25 per call. And I know because I've accepted hundreds of them from the guys out in those jails. And so the only thing, again, that's going to change this and stop this is legislation, which is really truly what tomorrow is about, not tomorrow, pardon me, Sunday and Monday is about across the border. It's one, empathizing and getting to know these guys on a one-by-one basis over a beer and a soda and a barbecue, spend the night, and then work on some legislative issues the next day, because what has to happen is we need a congressional representative in every district in the United States. There's 435 congressional districts, and there's 100 senators. And we're going to ultimately need a great many of those districts covered and put pressure on these congressmen over a period of time to get this legislation changed. It don't mean that it's changeable today. It don't mean it's changeable in 5 years. It may take a decade. I've been playing this game for 6 years, off and on, as my health and as my finances will allow. But when they go across that border, they also lose something else. They lose VA health care. Even if they have a service-connected disability, they've lost their health care, because the VA system puts them through a hell of a maze, and Mexico is one of 6 nations that does allow for the VA to contract with Mexican doctors to give these guys treatment if they've got a service-connected disability. But it's an uphill battle. I don't know anybody who's ever successfully walked that path, but Hector Barajas down at the sport house is pushing forward now on it, and he's hopefully going to be the first one that we know of. The other way is that those who don't have a service-connected disability, they don't have health care because they can't come across the border. So as is happening, and you're going to meet or talk to on the Skype here, Jose Salario Jr., which is the son of a Marine Corps veteran who passed away in the La Jolla VA just a few weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago. He was brought to the border in an ambulance, and his family requested a humanitarian visa for him to come across and be treated at the VA. It seems like we've gotten 2 across in the last 6 months of that method. Both of them died almost immediately upon crossing the border. One, the most recent, I forget Alfonso's last name. Barone. He ended up in a sharp hospital down in Chula Vista and lasted about 2 days. The Salario, he lasted about a week with one lung completely shut down and another at 60% capacity and fading. But he did get to see his mother who lived in Escondido, which is north of here in California. He got to see his son and his daughter and his uncle and his aunt. And he got to see his sister's 2 children. I mean, it was a wonderful experience. But then the VA, because they wanted to transfer him to Seattle for a lung transplant, and they figured the only way to give him longevity was to put him into a medically induced coma. Put him into a medically induced coma, hoping that would take the stress off the body, allow them to fly him up there and have him analyzed or assessed by those doctors and put on to the list. He didn't make it. He passed away about a week into that coma. He was buried. Now, this is the other fun thing. If you die, you can be brought back across the border in an urn of ashes or in a casket and be buried in a VA cemetery with full military honors. I mean, a 21-gun salute, the whole 9 yards. And they'll fold up the flag and hand it to your mother or your father or your sister or your brother and thank you for the military service. So I got a couple more things to do, and then he wants me to get out of this. So I'm hoping you'll come across the border on Sunday or Saturday or Sunday, pardon me. If you're not able to spend the night, that's okay. The transportation has been arranged to bring you back up that evening, so you can take the trolley back up if you need to fly out or what you might want to do, or you might want to go back and forth the next day. Hotel has been arranged. It's relatively inexpensive. So you've got transportation to and from the border, food and lodging set up. Last thing I want to say is Congress has a schedule. It's actually published online, 2015, 2016. When we organize across the border, it's not going to be as Veterans for Peace, although I'm still a member of Veterans for Peace. But we're not political in nature. We're a 501c3. We don't do political campaigns and we don't do legislation like this. We can hit politicians on how they react to issues, but we can't spend our time and energy this way. So a new organization will have to be formed. And that's part of what we're hoping to do on that border cross on Monday, is come to an agreement, folks go home to their congressional districts, and then we start with a phone bank like we've done with every, what do you call these things? Task force that VFP has set up, whether it was on homeless veterans or working groups, yeah. Then we'll figure out what our schedule is going to be. Somebody said he wanted to be in Washington, D.C. annually every Veterans Day. Well, Congress is home in the districts. So going to D.C. to affect Congress don't mean nothing. But when they're home in the districts, they're vulnerable to us. They're vulnerable to us because we can go into their town halls. We can ask to meet with them in their offices. And when they don't, we can protest them out in front of their offices. Not every day. Never do we say we're going to do this every day until they come home. That's ridiculous. It has to be strategic. It has to be where you're getting press and where you're building an organization of relatives and friends and like-minded people in those communities. That's basically where we're at this point in time. We could sure use some help, and we brothers would appreciate it greatly. And actually, now it's sisters as well. We've got some current generation women veterans who have been deported across the border as well. Thank you.
All right, for that. Jan will be conducting our workshop in Mexico Monday. He's the fellow who helped found the original group of deported veterans, and he's our, all you occupiers, he's our leader in this in this effort. And so he's been on the ground and working for us, and I really appreciate all your efforts, Jan. Thank you for that. We want to build community also while we're there. We want to do two things. We want to empower the veterans themselves that they're in this situation to take control of their lives rather than being controlled by their environment and being dumped off someplace. So we'll also be building into this program that we're doing down there claims advocacy and intake work to establish everybody's veteran credentials and be able to lock them into something that Hector down there has managed to get us involved in, which is now because you can, if you're more than 40 miles away from the doctor, you can get a ticket to go to any doctor you want with the VA. I forgot what they call the program. Well, that extends itself. Mexico is one of those places. So we're going to be able to, once we get our guys established through claims work, through our intake, we'll be able to plug them into medical facilities and things in Mexico, and the VA pay for it. So these are some of the steps that have been done with this little project down there. Now, the next person that I want to ask to talk a little bit is Mar. I'd like Mar to talk to us about her experiences in the community and how it relates, and then we'll hear from Jason, and then we're going to plug in the guys from and ladies from the Deported Veteran Support House on Skype, and let them talk a little bit. Let Hector talk to you, and then we'll open it all up for questions for everybody. So we'll just try to make these brief and concise. And Mar, with that, I'd like to turn it over to you and let you talk for a while. Thank you.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here and share a little bit of, is this working? Okay. Again, my name is Mar Cardenas Lotzenheiser. My husband is in the audience, he's right there. I want to give you a brief introduction. I'm a Gulf War vet. I was in the reserves when my unit got activated. I was drilling out of Long Beach, California. My husband was active duty. He got to stay home with the 4 children. They activated my unit. So let's give him a hand. So needless to say, that got us on the news that the reservist is going to war and the active duty guy is staying home. And he wasn't even stationed where we were living, so he had to commute. So anyway, it was a huge toll. It took a huge toll on the family as a whole. He is a retired Navy chief, and we met in the Navy. My youngest son is currently serving in Japan, in Port Wanimi. He's in Japan right now. And I have a son who served in the Army. He spent almost 5 years in Iraq, and he is back home with severe PTSD symptoms. So when I joined the military, I was escaping domestic violence. And I have always been very grateful to the military for the experience, but also I think the Navy saved my life. I was safer in a war zone than I was in the environment that I was living in. So I will always be grateful not only to this country, but also to the military. 5 years ago, we came across this story about this man who had served in the U.S. Army with the 82nd Airborne, and he was in Tijuana. And that kind of, like, why is he in Tijuana? Did he retire down there? What's going on? We found out that he was there because he had been deported. And that kind of caught us by surprise, as probably some of you got caught by surprise when you heard the phrase deported vets. And we started communicating with him. His name is Hector Barajas. You have heard his name a couple times already. And we started learning about the issue. What's going on? Why are these people being booted out of the United States after they have served it? And we found out a lot of them had honorable discharges. Their record was squeaky clean, so we couldn't understand why people were being banished from the country that they served with honor. So we became involved. We got to meet them in person, and we, with our close ties to the military, we decided that within our limited resources, we couldn't solve the entire immigration dilemma because we just don't have time, energy, and financial resources to do that. But this was one area that it was really close to our hearts and that we really could maybe make a difference. If nothing else, let these people know that they are not forgotten. That's already a huge help. Let them know that there's people who care, sharing their stories, making sure that more people know that this is happening, getting more people involved, and build momentum so that ideally in the near future, there will be changes at the legislative level, and we will be effectively helping them in a big way more than we could do it just the two of us. So, under the umbrella of the Standing on the Side of Love campaign, which I have another representative from that campaign, we brought it across the border. This is a campaign that is nationwide. It was started by Unitarian Universalists. And the mission of this campaign is to harness the power of love to overcome oppression in whichever form it might take. Well, this is a form of oppression. So we have come up with our new version of the campaign, Standing on the Side of Love with Deported Vets. And when 3 years ago my mother-in-law passed away and left us some money, we decided that we were going to use it to help in some way. And we built a community center where people, different groups, not just deported vets, but activists of all kinds, LGBT or whatever it is, the activist community in Tijuana could use it as a resource center, as a place to have their meetings and fundraisers and whatever they thought of, and also for a place for groups from outside of Tijuana could have a place to stay where they could bond together and be in a private setting. So we started hosting groups for a 4-day weekend where they would be out in the community, listening to stories, engage in service projects, visiting shelters, visiting the resources that are available in Tijuana. A lot of the people that have been coming on these border trips are people who are visiting detainees, the people that are waiting to be deported. They are held in detention for a while, making money for the private corporations, CCA and the GEO Group, and eventually they get deported, most of them. Some of them get released, some of them get transferred to another facility, but most of them will end up across the border. So what we're trying to do at Gary Mar, that's the name that we gave our center. Gary is my husband, my name is Mar. Very easy to remember as we get older. We're trying to render the border wall irrelevant by bringing together activists from both sides of the border who are working on similar issues. And by doing that, we are empowering them to become more effective, where they're not duplicating efforts, they're working together towards the same goal. So that's the mission of Centro Gary Mar. The story of Alvaro was just mentioned. We were very involved with that. We were with the family for the last 5 days before he returned to the United States. We were there every step of the way, along with other people who supported Al in his efforts to return to the United States. He succeeded in coming back to the U.S., to dying in the United States. But that's not all he wanted. He wanted to live in the United States. He wanted to go back to his family that was left behind when he got deported to his native Colombia. he was only in the United States for 48 hours before he passed away, as you heard. So as we continue to meet and listen to more stories of the deported vets, we know that they are spread out throughout the entire city and even beyond Tijuana. They're down in Rosarito, some of them are down in Ensenada. We try to work with all of them. Some of them have organized themselves for purposes of activism, which is awesome. Some of them are more on the more shy, or depending on their personality, they have decided to live on their own. We don't want those to be forgotten. We have contact with quite a few of them, and we're always looking for more. Some of them are struggling to make a living down there because they're trying to do it on their own. There's one in particular who makes things, lanyards and bags. Himself, he just rents this little room and he saws all day long making things to sell to survive. Their biggest problem is loneliness. A lot of them, they're more fluent in English than Spanish, so even being in the community as a member of the community is difficult for them because Spanish is their second language for a lot of them. So I invite all of you who were not planning on going to Tijuana to please reconsider your position that our center is open to you. If the hotel is full, if the bunker is full, please don't let that stop you. We are happy to host you. There's no charge at all. We're happy to take you back and forth to the bunker so that you don't miss any of the fun that we're going to be having there. So please, we are another resource for lodging, and not just this time around. In the future, if there's a group that, if you like what you see across the border, you want more people to experience what you are going to experience on Sunday and Monday, and you want to bring a group, please contact me and we'll help you make it happen. I believe that's, there's through the immigration as a moral issue, which is a class that I've been teaching at some Unitarian Universalist churches. They get to learn about why people leave their country, who's profiting from the current system, everything that there is to be known about the immigration issue. So out of that, some detention visitation programs have been born. On the last class, people brainstorm ways to do something about it. Okay, you got all this knowledge, you know so much about the issues, now what are you going to do with it? It's not just learning about it, it's taking action. That's the most important part of it. Right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me?
Right, yeah.
Okay, so this is my hint to you. You are learning a lot about different aspects of fighting for peace as veterans. Let's take that knowledge and do something with it. Find where your passion is and keep it, contact that person that can guide you to do something at the local level. Thank you so much for your giving me the opportunity to speak to you today.
Thank you, Mark. Well, two things you heard. You heard about action, taking action, and not just talking about these things, and if we feel good about it, it's going to happen kind of thing. So we got to have to make these things happen. And only through this kind of networking and linking up with folks in the community and taking what we have as resources to that community and sharing that with them, we can build these bonds that Mara's talking about. We can build the confidence. In addition, we'll be doing claims advocacy out of the support house in the next 6 or 7 months. And we'll start reintegrating these people into some kind of a support system. But the other thing that Mara said was, they're lonely. You can imagine how lonely that situation is down there. And as veterans, they've lost their bond not only with their families and everything else, but their identity of probably one of the most important things that ever happened in their life. And so our connection as Veterans for Peace, going down there and working with these folks and mentoring and listening to their ideas and how they want to work, empowers them. It gives them self-esteem. It lets them know they're not alone down here in Mexico. There's a national organization up here that's working for them, and they're going to get out of there and they're going to get home. And we're a beacon of light
and that belief for them. And that's where we need to stand in this issue. We need to be the beacon. And we also need to be the provisioner of whatever resources are needed by these folks that are on the ground working this issue when they call on you to assist. So with that,
Oh, just one more thing. May we please join?
yes, you may join. Thank you, Mar. I appreciate you there. All right. All right. I think now we're going to turn it over to Jason Cardenas here and let him talk to us for a few minutes, and then we'll mix in with the folks from Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here so early in the morning. I'm definitely not a morning person, but glad to be here. So Jan touched up on a lot of issues and a lot of the legal aspects of what's been going on with deported veterans. And as I was sifting through my notes, he pretty much covered a lot of stuff I planned on talking about. But I did, however, decide to speak about some of the broader issues that are connected with the deported veterans. And just to show, just to give you a little bit of my background and my story, I'm pretty new to San Diego. I've been here for about 2 years now. I came here for graduate school, and I was pretty ignorant to the issues surrounding the border and immigration. But I was fortunate enough to land an internship at a grassroots legal nonprofit specializing in immigration law. And through that, I was able to meet my beautiful wife, who is sitting in the audience right now. If you please turn off the sound.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. And so through meeting my wife, she happened to be in the same sector. She had been working with refugees and immigrants for about 5 years. And there's some interconnectedness with a lot of the issues here. A lot of what's going on and a lot of what's happening in our society right now is we have this marginalization of and otherizing of immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers here in the United States. And what comes with that are lack of services, language access, quality of life necessities, provisionary support. These lack of these sorts of things are creating these social barriers that we are seeing and witnessing, and it's a lot of it's tied into legislation as well. And I'm going to go back to some of the legislation Jan was talking about. So what we're seeing with all this lack of access to these quality of life necessities sort of ties into legislation connected to immigration. And going back to 1994 when this all started, and within the last decade, we've been seeing a major increase in deportations, more than ever before. And it's the law currently has been strategically designed to target people of color, and more than likely here in the United States, and here specifically in California, it's people of Latino descent, Mexicans, Central Americans, South Americans. And a lot of times what happens is that when, say someone has a lawful permanent residence status or asylum status or refugee status, they aren't afforded the rights and privileges of that of an American citizen. So when it comes to any sort of legal issue, it automatically it goes into the hands of immigration versus civil courts. So that automatically just pretty much takes every bit of right away from them to kind of prove their case and defend themselves. So being turned over to immigration right away opens them up to deportation and detainment for an unspecified amount of time. Sometimes people are detained for up to a few years without the proper necessities to live a fulfilling life. It's pretty sad, and it's happening now. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because working in this sector for a while, I've noticed that there are a lot of deficits with the activist community and bringing these issues forward. And one of the things is that the immigrant community from I say that, in my opinion, I see from the broader lens, they don't get a lot of support. They've been otherized, and people just don't want to pay attention to their matters. They automatically see them as some sort of enemy. And so, an example I like to use is this is when I actually first met up with Vets for Peace. I met them at an immigration rally that I helped put together, and it was called the March for Dignity and Respect, and it was for labor and immigration rights. And it was this big march to the streets, and I remember just seeing people standing on the sidelines, spitting on people and calling them names and using derogatory terms. Most of the people in the crowd were people of Latin American descent, so you can imagine some of the nasty things that were being said. So, and I noticed this just in general dialogue with people, and even in my graduate program, I was in a social work program. You'd be surprised that there were a lot of people there that really weren't too privy to a lot of the struggles with immigrants, and overall just didn't care. They saw them as unworthy of receiving services that we're being trained to provide, and because of their status. And so pretty much it's this idea of dehumanization that I experienced going through a so-called progressive program, and so this sort of prompted me to kind of work in this sector even more so. So one of the things that I want to bring up, and I want to keep this short, is that there's a lot of we can do a lot of things when it comes to legislation. We can talk to Congress people and push for some of these changes in policy that Jan presented, but where it really starts is community, because the problem is that a lot of the immigrant community is very much, they're kind of sectored off, and a lot of them are sort of afraid to come forward and even meet with somebody that's a United States citizen, or people that it's not of Latin American descent, or whatever their ethnicity or nationality may be. There's just a little bit of fear stemming from that, and I can totally understand. But to really press these issues, it starts with really connecting with the community, getting people from the community that are really attuned to some of the culture, especially to work with us, people with the privilege to help them out. People, what we're doing in Vets for Peace, and align ourselves to their sensitivities, to their needs, and bridge these gaps that we're seeing, because legislation is something it's very much needed, but we need support, and we need people to kind of see what's going on, see the bigger picture here. And veterans are in a very unique position to do that, especially deported veterans, because once we fix the issue with deported veterans, that will shine the light on the bigger issues pertaining to the immigrant and refugee community. So I think merging a lot of these issues together will basically help paint a better picture of the struggles that these people are going through. And so it's a terrible and it's a tragic thing that's what's happening to our veterans right now being deported. But at the same time, we can use this to our advantage while helping them out to bring into light a lot of the issues that are affecting our communities and the human beings living within, whether they hail from different countries or not, or whether they're here undocumented or not. They're still human beings, and they deserve access to quality of life, necessities, provisions. So that's pretty much what my work's been focused on, and my wife's been doing it for about 5 years, so she's definitely educated me on a lot of the prevailing issues, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of this committee, because I definitely see this as a stepping stone into delving deeper into the issues pertaining to all immigrants and asylum seekers especially. One thing I want to kind of share is a story that, and it's not really related to deported veterans, but you can see the connectedness between it with the asylum seekers and war, especially asylum seekers, especially in the most recent wars. A lot of them were interpreters and people working with the United States government, and a lot of them were promised asylum, for helping us out. And what happens is that, like the veterans coming back from war, they sort of get lost into the system. And you still have people lined up in places like Iraq and Afghanistan looking for their place or their number, their lottery ticket to get to the United States and get their promise of asylum. And even while they're here, there's still a deficit in regards to them receiving access to quality health care and everything else that that's normally afforded to permanent or citizens. And there's a lot of work to do. There's it's just disgusting what's going on. And again, I would like us to use this issue of deported veterans to extend our reach to help these other communities and help them, and that's it. That's all I have.
Well, we're going to take the next. We got through this last 40 years without that brother right over there. He trained not very well. Yes, we'll go ahead, Patrick. If you can go ahead and hook up with Hector down in Mexico, we'll hear Hector talk a little bit and introduce the folks that he has there with him, and then we'll open it up for questions. And you can question them and the panel and interact.
Let me question.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not carrying my passport.
Wow.
So I have to go.
But you have one.
Yeah.
They can look you up. It's fine.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's good news too. Well, if you don't have passports and you want to go to Mexico, they can look you up. That's
As long as you have a valid driver's license, they
okay.
can look you up. And the one thing that they don't want you to know, even if you don't have a passport,
They have
where are they going to deport you to? Back to the United States?
Either way.
We have a God-given right to re-enter our country, so they don't like you to know that deep dark secret. But you can get by without a passport. But if you have a passport, you just say, "I'm sorry, I forgot my passport," and they can look you up.
Okay. All right. So here we go. We're calling Hector Barras.
Could everybody turn off their phones, please?
Yes, I apologize for that, folks.
So why didn't Hector answer?
Send them a messenger thing.
Back in a few minutes. Go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we'll ping him up here.
Who we're trying to bring in right now is Louis Alvarez. He's a Marine Corps vet who joined at the tail end of the Vietnam War, was promised citizenship at 17 years of age. Never received it, faced deportation, was locked up for 4 years in El Centro. Won his own case eventually before the Ninth Circuit and got citizenship. So he's now a U.S. citizen residing in Orange County, trying to get his life back together. He's a paralegal. He was one of the 3 founding members of the original organization in 2009. Okay, well, there he is. You got Louis.
Says no answer.
3 times for Louis? What about Jose?
Hector just responded on the phone.
Oh,
Just needs to get back to his computer.
I'm going to go stand in the hall. So I'm gonna
Just
get
let us
all
go.
that. You go ahead and kind of carry it for a minute here while I get Hector hooked in.
So can I say something else about Louis Alvarez?
Sure.
I got to meet him at the 4th date of Fabian Rebolledo, who is another deported vet. He lives in Playas. He's my neighbor. He lives on his own. The charge that he was deported under is no longer considered a deportable offense, thanks to Prop 47. Those of you who fought for that, thank you so much. So because of that charge, it was a forgery. It's no longer a deportable offense. He is supposed to be allowed to return to the U.S. so that he can fight his case and
He's
pursue.
calling.
And so Louis Alvarez, who is now a paralegal, he became an expert on all these issues, is helping him with that.
There we go.
Hola, Héctor.
Hector's waiting.
Buenos dias, senor.
He's getting
Hector Barras.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Well, for a minute or two,
Get the camera there.
There we go.
yeah. What's going on, handsome?
I'm just trying to fix this phone here.
All right, Hector, take a few minutes to talk about where'd you go? Put work on the camera, bro.
Get my phone out and I just fix the phone over here.
Introduce yourself and tell about your work for a few minutes here, so we can.
Okay, so my name is Hector Barajas, and I served in the U.S. Army with the 82nd Airborne. We're currently speaking to you guys out of a support house for deported U.S. veterans. And we work with different veterans that live here in Tijuana, and also veterans that are deported to different countries around the world. And we're trying to raise awareness. That's our main focus, raise awareness about our situation and the separation of families. But we also have a shelter here for the men that get deported. We don't have as many resources as we would like to have, but we try to do the best we can with what we have, and that's as far as our work here as well.
So you got some folks there with you, or are we just?
Yes, we have Felix Peralta. Let me get him down here in a second.
Introduce everybody. Introduce them.
When they get down.
What's that?
Introduce them.
You gotta talk to this. Listen in my.
Introduce them.
Okay, so we have Felix Peralta who will be here in a second, and he's going to talk a little bit about his situation. So let me, he's walking over here right now. Just introduce yourself and tell me your situation.
Well, my name is Felix Alves Peralta Jr., and I served in the Army, and I've been deported since 2001, and I've been here at the bunker for about 3.5 months now.
About your life back home.
Oh, I was raised in, I was brought to the United States when I was like 4 years old, and I lived in East LA until I was 15, went to Pomona, and off and on was, I got in trouble and stuff. And after I served the service, and I was in Utah, I got in a fight with some cops, and they deported me. I've been here since 2001 now, Mexico. And in 2010, I tried to go back, and I got arrested for illegal entry, and they gave me 3 years for illegal entry. So it's been like 1 year and 8 months since I got released out of federal prison again. Oh, my family, about 5 months ago, my youngest daughter, she committed suicide in South Dakota, and I couldn't go back, and I was pretty heartbroken about that. And I got kids in Utah. I got a boy and a girl in Utah, and in California, I got a 20-year-old son, and he does come visit me like once a month.
So this is one of our men, Felix, that is staying here with us, and we've had different men stay throughout our time that we've been operating this place. Most of the men that have been deported had committed some type of a criminal offense, and most of it we consider that it's because of the PTSD and it's service connected. So what we're trying to say is that instead of deporting our men, get continued treatment and no deportation. So we've been working with Veterans for Peace and other organizations to hopefully get some legislation next year. And we've introduced legislation in the past, but we haven't had enough support. So hopefully out of this workshop that we're doing today, and we can get more people involved to raise awareness and support us when we do get these bills introduced or resolutions.
Okay, thank you, Hector.
Yes.
Hold on just a second. We're going to try to group shot this now.
What's that?
We're going to try to hook in Louie in now.
Okay.
We're going to try to hook in Louie in now.
Okay.
Jose Senario's son.
And Jose. Now you're going to have to give us a great big E for effort on this Skype thing. This is about the 26th time we've tried Skyping, and so far this is the most successful.
Yeah,
And it's all thanks to Patrick, who has dedicated his time.
This is Jose Salanio Jr. He's the son of a Marine Corps veteran who just passed away in the La Jolla, VA, a month and a half or so ago, who was brought across the border with the humanitarian visa. Good morning, Jose.
Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Welcome, Jose.
Why don't you tell us the impact this has had upon your family and you as a young boy when your father was deported, and what your feelings about this are?
Well, first of all, to all the veterans, I want to say thank you all very much for your service, and you know, I want to thank everybody out there that's still serving our great country. Again, thank you guys for your service. You know, when my dad was deported, I think it was you know, just the same as him being in jail. Unfortunately, made it very difficult for myself and my younger sister most of all. Luckily, I had my father the first 12 years of my life as a young boy, and but after that, he kept being a good guy, good man over the phone, and tried to teach me what he could over the phone. But afterwards, what made it really difficult was, like I said, for my sister. Her growing up without a dad was, I think something that no girl should go through. So, those are just some of the difficulties. As my dad taught me to put my feelings aside for the others, and I put my sister ahead of mine. And that's the main thing that I can think of is just how much my sister went through or didn't get from her father. And as time continued too, me having my son made it difficult as well, because you want the generation, and unfortunately I didn't get that either, so it just continued on even afterwards.
Good. All right, Jose.
He's going to try to get accepted. Stay on the line. Jose?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about how you were able to bring your father back across that border with your humanitarian visa, and what do you, and had he been brought across sooner, would it have made a difference, do you think?
Yeah, given his the disease that he had, I think it would have made a big difference. He was very strong in everything that he did. So when he found out that he could even try to come back over, I mean, he did everything that he could to come back. Unfortunately, like you said, Jen, it was just too late. And I do think that part of me thinks that he shouldn't even had to try. I think it should have just been given to him, even earlier than that. And I don't think it's right that you guys have to go through all that.
Hold on just a
Jose,
second.
hold on just a moment. We're going to bring Louis Alvarez in. We'll come back to you in a second.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This is Louis Alvarez. You there, Louis? Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, we were unable to hear you for most of what you were saying, but go ahead and tell us a little bit about your situation.
Okay. I found myself in deportation proceedings in 2007. It was prior to the reasoning. I was thinking myself as a citizen, so I got deported when I served in the U.S. Armed Forces. Paid $5,000 for a conviction attorney who happened to prove my case. My family kicked in another $7,000 because the attorney expressed that
Very good. How long did your case go on before you finally won it?
Approximately, well, I was in detention for a year and a half. I paid my bond, not to my attorneys on my own, and roughly about 3.5 years before I obtained my citizenship.
So a total of 5 years?
Yes, but I applied for work authorization and I was denied because when you're on imposition bond, you're not allowed to be employed.
You were the last individual facing deportation that was allowed to be bailed out. Am I correct? In fact, the judge didn't know how to handle you at that time?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat that?
I said you were the last individual that I was aware of that was allowed to be bailed out of the immigration system to fight your case from home and from the outside. Is that correct?
That is, I was second to last, at least the last one was Mr. Partida, so he ended up being deported.
Right. Okay. So Victor Partida was the one that never got out, correct?
Well, he was allowed
to go home.
Parole, but he lost his case and he was ordered deported.
Right. We're going to see you on Sunday still, Louis?
Yeah, but catch me away.
Wonderful. I'm sure we'll have a whole lot more to talk to you about at that point in time. We're going to try to open this up to conversation and questions from the audience. We'll go one at a time. You guys got anything to ask of Louis? Nobody? Okay.
Wait a minute, right here.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Louis, I was one of the people that was at Fabian's hearing, and I with the Standing on the Side of Love, and I was just wondering, maybe you can just briefly say how, for Fabian, since you worked on that with his lawyer, how the Prop 47 affected the fact that Fabian looks like he might be able to, he's going to come back to fight his case. Because, it was one of the ways that Prop 47 benefited immigrants.
I want to say the reception is breaking up.
Here's the question, Louis. Do you have, how did Prop 47 affect Fabian Robledo's case?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So we had last year in California, the citizens of California voted yes on Prop 47, which was basically designed to allow non-violent offenders to be released out of jail or prison because our state was under a federal court mandate to not house prisoners beyond the scope of their prisonation. Well, federal prisons are overcrowded, and because they were so overcrowded, a federal order was given to either create new prisons or release prisoners, and because of the economy, we couldn't create new prisons, so they decided to let any non-violent offenders be released, which was retroactive, meaning it was back in time. And that allowed a lot of veterans, I'm sure it wasn't part of the design of the bill, but it allowed veterans or anybody who had any felonies that were non-violent and did not exceed damage of $950 to be able to reduce their charges and their convictions to misdemeanors. And that's how I was able to get Pedro Guerrero's case reduced to misdemeanor, as well as myself and any other veteran that fall under the regulations of non-violent and not exceeding damage of $950 in California. There are similar laws, I believe, in Florida, perhaps in Arizona, that see veterans too.
All right. Any other questions for Louis? Louis, we're going to put you on hold for a minute and go back to Jose Saladio's son, okay?
That's right.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Jose about his father's situation or about his family's situation and what it did to them?
I'm just interested. Jose, are you, can you hear Jose?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. A few folks had some questions. We're going to let them come from the audience. If you can't hear, let me know and I'll let you know what they ask.
Okay.
What do you think is the motivation of these people who support these immigration laws and you know, where should we go towards, how should we approach them and what do we need to do to approach them?
I heard part of the question. Jen, can you repeat it, please?
Yeah, I think he was asking, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
What is the mindset of these people who support these laws that send these young men and women out of our country? And what is he?
He's asking if you have an opinion on what you believe the mindset might be of the politicians and the folks at Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Homeland Security who deport veterans and make laws like this that affect these folks.
You know, I just politicians and you know, lawyers alike. I think I'm not sure what they're thinking. I mean, it's beyond that. You know, I mean, you serve this country. I think you should be granted certain things. You know, and I think that they're not really caring about the veterans. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I mean, as far as, you know, the lawyers and the DAs go, you know, for my dad's particular case, I think they were just trying to make an example of him, you know, and I think it's even worse because he was a veteran, you know, and I just, you know, going back to the politicians and what they think, I can't even express what I
understand.
But I think, you know.
I think we share his frustration.
We share your frustrations, as Hager says. Anybody else have a question for Jose? Yes.
Can I?
Oh, sorry, over here.
Yeah, I have more of a, excuse me. I have more of a comment. One thing is I think the answer to the previous question is racism and demagoguery being used to reach out to the worst bases of our country. And you're using immigrants and Mexicans and Black Lives Matter also speaking about as scapegoats for all of the other problems in the world because they don't want to address the real problems. I also, you know, every time I hear and I understand where you're coming from, I just want you to know as a veteran that things like thank you for your service, it upsets me in some ways, you know, and I think that people have to understand that I don't want to be thanked for my service for going and killing somebody else, but I don't mind saying thank you for your service with Veterans for Peace, that's fighting for what you guys are doing.
Right.
All right?
Jan, Mara has a comment.
Okay, it's related to his question.
Jose, have you met Mar?
Yes, we were at the court date
Okay.
for Fabian.
Jose, Mar's here. She'd like to ask you a few questions.
Okay, just briefly, two things. Yesterday, I'm wearing this T-shirt that says, you know, stop the deportation. And a person is looking at it and saying, who is deporting vets? Like the U.S. government. How could that be? So, well, they had a green card, just like I did when we joined the military. Oh, so they were immigrants. And then he kept walking. So somehow, the fact that these people were not born in the United States makes them less worthy of the benefits they earn, of any respect, appreciation, health support, whatever, you name it. So, and having heard that from a person in this convention was shocking. Okay, the one thing I want to, in response to your, said there's no financial motivation to bring them back. Why? Because if we bring them back, then we have to give them the medical attention and their pensions and everything, all the benefits that they earn. In addition to that, a lot of these people work in the United States more than 10 years, including the military service, but also for other companies. Or maybe they were in the military more than 10 years. So they contributed into the Social Security system, but in order for them to begin, it's like an annuity. If you're not here to say, I want to annuitize it and get income for life, you have to be here in person. So this is money that the government is keeping. So you think war is a racket?
Yeah.
I have another racket for you.
All right, well, we're running, Jose, Louis. We'll see you, Louis, on Sunday. Jose, I'll talk to you again in a few days. Looking forward to working with you on this and legislating in the future, brother. God bless your family and thank you.
God bless you guys. Thank you.
All right, well, we're getting close on time. Is there any other general questions anybody has for what's been presented so far? Or that we can help you? Yes, sir?
I'm wondering, is there actual legislation with a bill number that we can start?
Yes, and when you attend the workshop on Monday, we don't have it here for handouts, but Jan, we'll have those prepared. We have bills. There are bills before Congress. I think there's 2 actual pieces of legislation that we're dealing
Hector
with.
Barajas page. If you connect with Hector Barajas.
Yeah. But if you'll connect up and if you've signed up for the information, that will be coming forth to you.
Okay, good.
Okay, you'll be on the development, have all of the resource links and whatnot, and the information.
You said U.S. code something when you began this.
Yes.
U.S. code number.
Yeah, there's a U.S. code that defines what a citizen and a national of the United States is, and it's 8 U.S.C. 1101 Alpha 22.
Thank you.
And at present, there's 2 categories: a citizen and a person who, though not a citizen, owes permanent allegiance to the United States. The courts have ruled that, though not a citizen, owes permanent allegiance would be folks like from our protectorates. Puerto Rico, Guam, that type of thing. So from the far reaches of the empire. It would also be folks who were granted political asylum here in the United States, perhaps from Iran or from another country. Those people are considered U.S. nationals. How ironic that a man who, or a woman who took the oath to protect and defend and put on the uniform and may have shed blood for this country is not considered a U.S. national and is given no thanks and no respect for their service and their potential damage to themselves and the loss of life and what their families went through while they were in the military. That's all.